So today, looking to test out how it feels to like level and progress and actually start as a double throw barbarian. We started a brand new character, no twinked gear, nothing like that, and we just played from 1 to level 25 and we just beat Bale. Took us a few hours. I've also just been stopping and having very deep and philosophical and theological and game balance conversations with chat, so I'm going to chalk up a lot of it to that. But let's talk about the overall experience and whether or not I think that double throw is a viable leveling strategy. Just to like quickly point out what our skill points look like, what our stat points look like, and what our gear looks like, to give you an idea of the average amount of stuff you might find in a run like this. We started off level 1 bash. We actually held on to our points because you can't get throwing mastery until 6. Can't get double swing or leap until 6, and then double throw becomes available at level 12. We started putting in the extra points into Howl, Taunt, and Shout, since I am going to go down to battle orders, as well as battle cry and battle command ultimately. And we picked up leap and leap attack because of the ridiculous amount of mobility. Please, if you haven't yet, try out just running around on leap. Even with 35 faster run walk, leap attacking across the board is still faster in almost every single scenario. I highly recommend it. The trick here is to be able to become infinite when it comes to double throw. So in 2.4, double throw is both going to have a chance to not consume any of your quantity while throwing, and will have a chance to recuperate quantity when you crit on an attack. On top of that, it gives you your pierce, attack rating, and damage. So while you may think double throw, you need to max out the skill as well as the synergy double swing, realistically, while leveling, you actually want to dump all of your points into the mastery itself, because not only is it going to give you that pierce, like we're already up to 41% chance to pierce with no gear on at level 25, which is pretty high. It's actually surprisingly high, much higher than I thought it was going to be at this point. I would say that around Act 2, around level 16, without doing Radamant, I actually forgot to do Radamant, we were infinite, meaning we never ran out of quantity on our weapons, except for a single ethereal weapon. We actually used an ethereal weapon for about 15 levels without it ever running out once we hit around level 13, 14. Overall, the ability to go infinite is there from a very early stage, so you don't have to worry about that. And you do want to max out throwing mastery before you put any additional points into either double swing or double throw, but it is super important to pick up battle cry, because this is going to drastically increase the chance of you hitting a monster, as well as reducing the damage the monster is going to do to you, which is very helpful starting off at Duriel, who's going to knock you around quite a bit. For our stats, we put in enough strength and dex to be able to use the throwing weapons that we have, and then you dump the rest into vitality. Double throw only takes 2 mana per attack, so 4 mana in total, to be able to use this skill. So you do need to drink mana potions, but you really don't need to put anything into energy, and you don't ever feel like you're mana hungry, at least in the early game. For gear, we imbued a war javelin, and we picked up a random rare balance stack. So we're using a 10 IAS ED max damage with AR and damage to undead, as well as some cold res on a rare balance stacks. And the imbue on the war javelin, which is just a higher damage base weapon, got max damage, AR, and cold damage. In addition to that, we're using a stealth, which we didn't have until Act 3, 2 Ral runes and a cap, this pretty sick res amulet that we picked up, run walk boots, max damage with some magic find. This one, max damage, AR, dex, and dual res, actually pretty sweet. We crafted crushing blow gloves. So this is a perfect ruby, a jewel, and a nephrune along with heavy gloves. The reason why they're so important is because it's going to give you crushing blow, life leech, and life as a base standard. The crushing blow goes a super long way for helping to kill bosses, especially in normal difficulty. And then these ones happen to roll with dual res and really high life. Lastly, in the charms, we had a little bit of res, a little bit of damage, and some base stats. Honestly, anything that you can get on charms down here that say life, resistance, hit recovery, run walk speed, or damage is going to go a very long way. And you'll see that our double throw at level 25 is doing about 100 to 150 damage. So somewhere around 125 average damage per toss, while sitting on high 800 to 1000 attack rating. Res is also in a really good place. One, we are a barbarian, so we are going to be able to pick up natural res. We've done Anya quest, and we happen to pick up some really good res on the rest of our gear, especially this amulet and our double Ral helmet. On the swap, we did buy a teleport staff, and then in addition to that, you can also buy an enchant staff. Now, the enchant staff isn't super powerful by any means. It's only giving you 20% additional attack rating and a little bit of fire damage, but it lasts for over 2 minutes, and when we cast it on ourselves, you'll see our attack rating go up by about 100. Free 100 attack rating is nothing to sneeze at, especially if you were to pick up dual angelics. This would actually be a pretty sizable bump to your overall attack rating. But this generally increases your chance to hit against something like Bale by about 2 or 3%, and anything else, it's more like 5 to 10%. How does it feel leveling? How does it feel piloting? Well, especially if you go get yourself a Blessed Aim Mercenary, which I can show you the one that we got. We ended up finding a white pike, which is just like the highest amount of damage that you're going to be able to get on a base weapon for him this early without finding a really good rare, magic, or unique option. Arctic Fur for that 10 all res, and then some Fire Res and Frost Nova, which really helps for AoE, crowd control, and survivability. He's doing a decent amount of damage as well, 48 to 148. Then eventually when his Blessed Aim kicks in, you'll notice that our AR is going to go up by a pretty significant amount. Overall leveling felt good. Realistically, it felt good. Started off with 2 regular javelins, picked up Strangling Gas potions and Fulminating potions, which absolutely do get replenished by Throwing Mastery, which helps to save a lot of gold in the early game, and just kind of made our way through. We were using player settings, so bumping up to players 8 when we could kill things effectively, and just by happenstance, we kind of made it to level 23 by the time we got into Act 5. I got up to level 24 while we were gem shrine hunting to be able to make the perfect ruby for our Crushing Blow gloves, and then we finished off and got level 25 with the Ancients. This means that as long as we go make a single cow game, or even just kill Eldritch a few more times, we'll be level 26, so that when we walk into Nightmare, we'll be able to buy good potions, because you do need to be level 26, so that they'll sell greater potions rather than the minor potions at level 25, even in Nightmare. Keep that in mind. Getting through normal is fine, generally easy, of course. How is it going to feel walking into Nightmare? Well, I think that the most important thing that you should do at this point, if you're looking to advance further on Double Throw, and use this as a league or season starter, is overlevel in normal. Go run yourself through cows. The problem is you can't rely on making any rune word weapons to be able to bump up your damage. So you either need to imbue throwing weapons, pick up just good rare throwing weapons off the ground, and remember, ethereal doesn't matter since you never run out of quantity, starting around level 16. But also you can use 3 chip gems and actually re-roll a magic throwing weapon. So if I got a nice balanced axe, I could toss it into the cube with 3 chip gems. It'll re-roll it and give it a chance for an additional affix and suffix, and it'll change its base stats. So you might get something pretty crazy like increased attack speed and enhanced damage and min or max damage. We actually had a really, really nice balance axe that we were using before this that rolled really high ED and plus to max damage. We ended up using this one because of the IAS for a better breakpoint, but the damage was actually better on the magic balanced axe. On top of that, running something like cows, even with somewhere between 20 to 50 magic fine, gives you a really good chance of running into some of the set items that are going to be so powerful. 3-piece Saigons, 2-piece Angelics, being able to pick up Sanders boots and gloves would all be absolutely disgusting, as well as Death's gloves and Death's belt, which would get you that cannot be frozen, so you don't need any thawing potions. And then you'd walk into Nightmare, buy some good res gear on the rest of your gear pieces from Charcy and Geed, and you'd be good to go. Make sure to do all of your additional quests so that you have the maximum amount of plus to life, res, resources, as well as plus to skills. So don't skip out on Radamant, Izzy, doing both the Jade figurine, as well as the Gidbin and Lamb Essen's tome. And then there you go. And then the last item that is just so important to pick up, and we just didn't happen to get any, would be an open socket Barbarian Primal Helm. Why would those be so important? While we can't get the benefit of runes in our weapons, we can put runes and jewels into our helmet. And just to give you an example of some of the stuff that we picked up that would be absolutely nutso for us right now, is a 2 to 4 damage, 3 to 5 fire damage jewel. This doesn't look like a lot, but increasing base 2 to 4 damage, considering we're adding hundreds of off-weapon ED between Throwing Mastery and we're getting multiples of this damage just by throwing that into a helmet. And if we're ever done with a helmet that isn't a Barbarian helm, you can always throw it onto your Mercenary so that they have extra damage. And then we also picked up a 20 ED jewel. This one, again, as long as you're not putting it into a helmet that already has damage, there's a lot of weird bugs that go along with it, but tossing this into a helmet with a jewel that says plus 20 poison damage over 2 seconds, and you have a massive damage piece that'll help you carry into Nightmare in the early game as far as progression goes. Just to give you an idea of some of the other items that we kept so that we could keep playing, we did find amplified damage on a weapon. This goes a long way for killing bosses faster if you can get onto a decent damage base. Ultimately, this one was too low level for us to use, but a rare weapon can absolutely have this on it. We picked up a 3-socket poleaxe. Because we can't use rune word weapons doesn't mean that our mercenary can't. So being able to put a malice into this thing that has 14 ED would be absolutely huge for his damage output if we didn't happen to find the battle branch. So once he's level 25, we'll be giving him 30 IS, 58 ED, AR, life leech, and dex. Like, this thing's an absolute powerhouse on our mercenary. And then just different ideas. So we kept a magic throwing axe for re-rolling. These were the runes that we happened to pick up. So if we needed to, we could give ourselves some additional resistances here and there. We can give ourselves mana or mana return if we happen to be running into mana issues. And then lastly, a kite shield. Ultimately, you probably want to make an Ancient's Pledge just for when you are running to and from areas. There's no reason to not have this on swap if you're not using a teleport staff, especially if you have Magic Find on the swap as well and you're starting to get into find item use. And just keep in mind, there are some ways to generate items for effectively free. You get to imbue at least one time in normal from Charcy. Saving Anya does mean that she'll give you a primal helm. And this one happened to be increase speed, find item, and pole arm mastery with res. Now, if this thing said throwing mastery, plus to battle orders, plus to find item, which it does have, or any of the other utility skills, it could really go a long way. Toss a socket into this thing, and then you throw some res into it as well, and you're probably all set for Nightmare. Some things that you can do to level if you don't want to be in cows, if you want to level a bit more quickly. Going and farming Eldritch in Pindle are very quick, easy ways of generating a lot of gold so that you can easily repair your teleport staff and your enchant staff if you're using it. And just a very easy way of generating more drops for the chance of getting really good rares and magic items for both you and your mercenary to use. Lastly, now that I'm done capitulating about what you can and cannot do and how you would continue to progress, how does it feel compared to leveling on other things? For a first time taking this out in PD2 and just kind of theory crafting on the fly what I think a good leveling strategy would be, I'd say that this one is fairly comparable in speed to the normal Barbarian normal speedrun time, but on bosses, you definitely are hurting a bit more if you don't happen to find a really good set of rare weapons with amp damage on it. The inability to get minus target defense and open wounds without crafting a blood belt goes a long way to make boss fights feel a bit more arduous, but there's nothing stopping you from over-leveling before walking into those fights. Nobody says that you have to kill Bale at level 25. Feel free to finish off normal at 30 or even 35, and then easily walk into Nightmare with a really well-geared out character. Major progression choke points for this build are going to be people who are either newer to playing the game, not necessarily used to using a teleport staff on swap, and in addition to that, not finding good enough weapons to use. That's the major choke point here. If you are willing to use Herodric Cube recipes and a bit of crafting, you definitely have some options. But what I would say is if you don't feel comfortable starting on this, wait until you have a couple different sets of good throwing weapons in your shared stash, and then either respec over to it or start up your Barbarian if you happen to start on a different class. Overall, I'd say that I would have a fairly easy time progressing all the way through Hell on this build, even though it might take me a little bit of farming to get decent weapons. All in all, I would highly recommend it as something as a bit more of a challenge and more interesting than other Barbarian leveling strategies, and overall a really refreshing way of playing the game, considering you actually get to be a double throw barb, starting at such an early level where you no longer have to worry about quantity. But I hope that you try this out, especially when the ladder starts in earnest. Maybe practice a little bit right now while you have the time and basically it's all free. And let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the new one.